Hello students and welcome back. Our today's topic is projectile motion. In this video, I'm going to introduce you the projectile motion. Projectile motion is a form of a motion experienced by a launch object under gravity. The launch object is called projectile. Let's understand the projectile motion more with the help of example. The javelin throw is an example of the projectile motion. Here, the javelin acts as a projectile. In this game, the competitor with the longest throw decides the winner. Similarly, in the long jump, the person or the player himself is the projectile. The winner of the long jump competition is decided by which athlete records farthest jump. Similarly, in the dish throw, in the hammer throw, and in a shot put, in all these games, the range of a projectile is decide the winner. But there are few more games based on the projectile motion like a cricket. In this game, the player has to hit ball according to the placement of fielders. So every time the player has to alter the range of the projectile. Similarly, in the basketball, the player has to throw the ball so that it reaches to the basket, since every time the position of the player is different. Similarly, in the case of a football and the Angry Bird game, the player has to alter the path of the projectile. It observed that student in above discussed game, the player not always successful in its attempt to launch the projectile to its desired place. So on what factors this projectile motion is depends on, let's understand. The path of the projectile is called trajectory. For oblique throw of the projectile, its trajectory is parabola. In the given picture, you can see the dotted line represents the parabolic path, that is the path of projectile. The path of the projectile depends on two things. First thing, the initial velocity of projection. It is the velocity with which the object or the projectile get launched. And the other thing is the angle made by the initial velocity vector with the horizontal. This angle is known as the angle of launching. These two factors decides the path of the projectile, that is trajectory of the projectile. Here you can see student for the given initial velocity and the angle of launching, this is the horizontal displacement. The horizontal displacement is called range of the projectile. And h is the maximum height attained by the projectile for the initial velocity u and the angle of projection theta. As I change the initial velocity and the angle of projection, the height and range will change. Now let's see how. Here, let u dash is the initial velocity. Here I purposely use the symbol u dash. It shows this velocity is differ from the velocity what we consider in the previous slide. This is the angle of projection theta dash. For this initial velocity of projection, the projectile, that is a ball, takes this trajectory. This is the range of the projectile, and this is the maximum height attained by the projectile for the given initial velocity u dash. So from this you can understand student, for the given initial velocity and the angle of projection, every time the maximum height will be different, and similarly the range, that is a horizontal distance covered by the ball, is also different. One more thing that you understand over here student, for the given instant of a time, the given projectile has a horizontal as well as the vertical displacement. So that I can say that the projectile motion is a two-dimensional motion. Now let's draw the Cartesian coordinate system, in which initially the projectile is at origin. Here you can see student, the given motion is a two-dimensional motion. So The projectile motion is a very good example of the motion in plane. Let's understand what are the forces act on the projectile. Here you can see, student, the trajectory of the projectile is symmetric on both sides. It can possible only when there is a only conservative force that acts on the projectile. Then only it is possible the symmetric path for the projectile. So only conservative force which is act on the projectile is the gravitational force. If the non-conservative force like air friction is act on the projectile, then the path of a projectile will not be the symmetric parabola. So here you can see, student, the path of a projectile is a symmetric parabola. So here only force which is act on the projectile or the ball is the gravitational force. Hence the projectile motion can also be defined as the motion under gravity. Now brain gym. We just discussed, student, the projectile motion is a motion under gravity. Now let's suppose that if I throw the ball vertically up, the motion of the ball is under gravity. So can I call this vertically upward motion of the ball as a projectile motion? Think over and write your answer in a comment box. Students, do like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.